Welcome to the second installment of our video series on using supported decision-making to advance employment outcomes for people with disabilities in Connecticut. I'm Jennifer Jenkins, Senior Advocate at Disability Rights Connecticut, and the parent of an 11-year-old son with intellectual and developmental disabilities. In this presentation, you will learn about supported decision-making, or SDM, informed choice, and exploring employment options. As in previous videos, you will hear directly from people with disabilities and their family members about supported decision-making and informed choice. If you are interested in learning more, you can find clips from our interviews on the supported decision-making page of our website at disrightsct.org/SDM. That's disrightsct.org/SDM. As people with disabilities consider employment options, important questions can come up. What are the person's goals and interests when it comes to work? What kind of job does the person want? What kind of supports do they need? How can we make sure the decision is one that really reflects the person's interests and preferences? In this installment of Disability Rights Connecticut's video series on using supported decision-making to advance employment for people with disabilities, we will be talking about the term informed choice. Why does informed choice matter in the employment context? What are barriers to making truly informed choices? How can using supported decision-making help to overcome barriers to informed choice? And how does informed choice work if the person has a guardian or conservator? We will also be sharing some stories directly from people with lived experience who are using supported decision-making principles to make informed choices about employment options. What is informed choice? In short, informed choice is a process of choosing from available options based on accurate information, knowledge, and experiences. Like all of us, people with disabilities have the right to make choices about where they work and how they spend their days. However, we want to be sure that they and their families have the opportunity, supports, and experiences necessary to make fully informed decisions, including whether to engage in competitive integrated employment in the community. The goal is to reduce or eliminate any barriers people are facing when pursuing employment. That is what informed choice is about. Throughout these modules, you'll hear us refer to competitive integrated employment. What do we mean by that? In the federal definition of competitive integrated employment, or CIE, competitive means that an employee with a disability earns a similar wage and benefits as employees without disabilities that do the same work. Integrated means working at a location where the person is interacting with other people without disabilities to the same extent as employees without disabilities in comparable positions are. It means working with coworkers, customers, and suppliers with and without disabilities. And there are additional components of CIE. The employment may be full-time or part-time. It also may include owning one's own business, called self-employment. A person in CIE must make at least minimum wage. In Connecticut, as of January 1st, 2025, the minimum wage is $16.35 per hour, but it may be higher for some jobs through the federal government, and it is lower for restaurant and hotel workers. Finally, CIE must offer employees with disabilities opportunities for career advancement that are similar to employees without disabilities. In competitive workplaces, no one is stuck in an entry-level position just because they have a disability. Instead, every employee has the same chance to move forward in their career. Finally, CIE can promote an integrated workplace that makes accommodations for the needs of employees with disabilities, including by providing interpreters, technological supports, and other tools. This ensures that employees with and without disabilities can work together in meaningful ways. Why does informed choice matter? Why are we talking about it today? As we shared in our first training video about supported decision-making, studies show that people who exercise greater self-determination, who are in control and actors in their own lives, experience better life outcomes. They are more likely to live independently and be integrated in the community. They are more likely to be employed in better paying jobs. And they are more likely to identify situations where they could face abuse and less likely to suffer abuse. This is one good reason why informed choice matters, but there are others too. In 2011, the state of Connecticut's Department of Developmental Services became an employment first agency. In doing so, it joined more than 40 states with an employment first policy, law, or initiative advocating for the employment of people with disabilities. In its policy, it expressly recognized that, quote, employment opportunities in fully integrated work settings are the first priority. While all options are important and valued, integrated employment is more valued than non-employment, segregated employment, facility-based employment, or dehabilitation in terms of outcomes for individuals, end quote. In addition, informed choice is embedded in federal law and guidance. The US Department of Justice has said that simply asking people their preferences about where they want to spend their day is not enough for informed choice. The DOJ has outlined specific steps that are required for states and public agencies to ensure informed choices under the Americans with Disabilities Act. We will be talking more about them today. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which has federal authority over home and community-based services, also has requirements around informed choice, as do laws that govern vocational rehabilitation agency services. Section 511 of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which places limitations on payment of subminimum wages, requires people to receive career counseling that helps them explore and consider competitive integrated employment. And there is one overarching reason that informed choice matters. All people have the right to make decisions for and about themselves. Informed choice helps ensure that people with disabilities can fully exercise that right. What are some of the underlying values and principles of informed choice? We should start with some important assumptions. First, all individuals with disabilities are entitled to the information necessary to make informed choices about their service options, including where they spend their days. Second, all individuals can express preferences and make choices about their lives with the right supports. They may express themselves in different ways and with different kinds of supports, but everyone communicates in some way. There is also value in supporting people with disabilities to have opportunities to make choices, as those opportunities provide an important sense of personal value and self-determination. Making these values and principles a reality requires an informed choice process that is comprehensive, interactive, and accessible to individuals and their families. And people with disabilities must be seen as active participants at the center of this process. Antonio is a 20-year-old man with an intellectual disability who works at 3 different jobs in the community. In the next video clip, you are going to hear from Mary, Antonio's mother, who's going to share the advice that she would give to other parents around supporting informed choice in employment.
I would say really let the child choose. One of my things with Antonio is that people ask me, well, will he do this? Will he be able to do this? And I said, I don't know, but I'm going to afford him the opportunity to show me if he can or cannot. And so I think it all lies in just providing as many opportunities you can and see where your child steps up to the challenge and what they can do and help foster that. I mean, there's no one size fits all. Antonio's like any other typical teenager or 20-year-old who, I like this today and tomorrow I don't like it. Um, and so, I don't force anything on him. I try to, I don't like him to give up early, but my advice would be to provide opportunities, multiple opportunities, and let your child show you or demonstrate the choice that they want, and then hear them.
Mary shared some great ways to support informed choice in employment. She talked about directly involving people in their own informed choice process, providing people with multiple opportunities to be exposed to and to experience choices, and recognizing that it is not one size fits all. Information should be individualized. This slide will highlight some of the key components of a good informed choice process. To ensure that people with disabilities have the information that they need to make an informed choice about whether they want to pursue competitive integrated employment, all these components should be met, and that may well require advocacy. We will be explaining more about many of these shortly. Overall, key components of a good informed choice process should include providing individualized information and education about community options, supporting the person with a disability to ensure that they have an opportunity for direct observation, visits, and engagement with those options, targeting efforts to address any barriers they face or fears and concerns that they or their families have about their options, ensuring that the person can explore community options, including through peer-to-peer and family-to-family programs, providing accommodations for cognitive impairments or challenges in decision-making, as well as accommodations for lack of experience with decision-making and any history of institutionalization or segregation. To see a clip of Mary explaining some more concrete ways she helps Antonio understand and make informed choices about his options, including researching job opportunities, you can visit DRCT's Supported Decision-Making webpage. In addition, a good informed choice process should also include these components: making sure that people with disabilities have individualized options counseling and referrals to integrated services when they want to explore community options, ensuring that they have individualized assessments and service plans that identify the supports they need to transition to the community, receiving ongoing service coordination or case management, and periodic opportunities to discuss and explore options. And finally, being able to access a range of integration alternatives that are accessible, appropriate, and available. As we will be talking about more soon, supporters can play an important role in ensuring that a person has the information and accommodations they need to make an informed decision about whether they want to choose competitive integrated employment. When we talk about the key parts of the informed choice process, it is also important to be aware of the barriers. While a transition to competitive integrated employment is rewarding, it is often not easy. Unfortunately, society has historically had strong biases against and held low expectations for people with disabilities' capacity to work in the community. This can impact not only how other people view them, but how people with disabilities view themselves and their own capabilities and potential. People with disabilities and their families may not know about all the choices available. They may have been incorrectly told that certain doors and services are closed to the person because of the perceived extent of the person's disability. They may not know what competitive integrated employment really looks like for people with disabilities, or how to access the services that may be necessary to work in the community. We will be talking more about how to access those services in our next training video. In addition, people with disabilities may not have been given the opportunities to make a variety of choices in their own lives. As we've said in our prior video, decision-making is like a muscle. If you've not had the chance to exercise it, it will not grow strong and could even get worse and atrophy. Learned helplessness may need to be unlearned. There are also myths out there that competitive employment carries with it a lot of risks for people with disabilities. For example, that working means the person will lose their public benefits and medical coverage. Rather than addressing those kinds of concerns proactively through, say, benefits counseling and information about Social Security work incentives, service providers may instead let the person decide not to explore work, even though the person does not have all the information they need to make a truly informed choice. We're here to share tips and strategies to push back on that and encourage fully informed choices. Next, you will hear about Brian and learn about some of the barriers he has faced in his employment journey. Brian is a 50-year-old man who has cerebral palsy, an intellectual disability, and a strong desire to work. His disabilities present him with a variety of challenges. For many years, he had been working in a segregated facility, stuffing envelopes and shredding paper at sub-minimum wages. However, he has long had an interest in working in the community as a security guard. Brian is someone who many people have had low expectations of. Though he has frequently expressed his interests and advocated for himself, it has been a slow journey for him. His lack of knowledge about what competitive integrated work is and what options are available to him for supported employment have been barriers. The biggest barrier, however, has been the lack of support from professionals working with Brian. Let's listen to Brian tell us a bit about his story.
The reason I'm searching for employment is because last time I had a job, I got not fired or anything like that, but they laid me off. I I don't want to work in any um in a store like that again because they think that I'm not capable of doing things for security. I know I'm able to do things like that, but it makes me feel kind of aggravated.
Next, you will hear from Nick, who will share his advice to other people with disabilities who may face barriers to employment. Nick talks about some of the barriers he and people with disabilities face in accessing employment and what people with disabilities and family members should keep in mind throughout the process. Let's listen in.
the advice that we give to people who have disabilities and look for employment is keep go find the places that you like. It's hard, but once you keep practicing more and more, you would definitely get the hang of it. It's hard at first, but you have a lot of people who are there to help you and support you, whether if it's your parents, your teachers, and all that. You are not alone, and you have great communicating skills and learning skills. You have a great mindset, and you can do it. You can do anything you want. You just follow your heart on what it takes to work. Be a hard worker, and you will fly through this process, and you are going to become a rock star at any job. As long as you follow, as long as you love it though. If it works out, great. But if you don't like it, it's okay. A lot of people have different opinions on whether they like this job or not. But as long as you keep practicing this stuff, more stuff, you're gonna like be a really successful man or woman who.
Let's turn to some ways to overcome these barriers to informed choice and employment. One way is to understand and educate people about the benefits of working in integrated settings. For example, the person with a disability may have access to increased wages and more spending money. They may be able to build new and more relationships and friendships that integrate them into the community and expand their support networks. Another way to overcome these barriers is to appreciate that the person may need accommodations to overcome challenges with decision making. This can include helping the person use supported decision making by assisting them to understand the choices they face, ask questions, get answers they understand, and fully appreciate what all their employment options are. Most people and their families need more than a mere description of the kind of day and vocational services available in the community. They need to actually see those services in action to know what they really look like and how they work in practice. They need to visit potential providers, employment settings, and service options to directly observe and engage in those activities. This could be through short-term job trials or sampling, informational interviews, job tours, or job shadowing. And it may take time. If a person has never envisioned themselves working in the community, it may be difficult for them to make that leap. Peer-to-peer discussions about employment options can be very helpful. People with disabilities should talk to other people with disabilities who are working successfully in integrated employment or are in the process of transitioning to it. Hearing about real-life experiences from a peer navigating community employment can be helpful in informing expectations about what it means to work. So too, family members can learn from other families about how the process has worked for them and their loved ones. Insist upon individualized assessments and service plans that recognize strengths and needs. Planning around employment goals should not be cookie cutter, but rather individualized to the person, their preferences, and their needs. Push for ongoing service coordination and case management. As we have described, informed choice is a process that can take time, and having access to an active case manager is important. Families and people with disabilities can have real fears and concerns about community work, and those concerns should be discussed and addressed, rather than being viewed as insurmountable barriers to employment. For example, if someone is concerned that they will lose Medicaid benefits if they work, they should be connected with a benefits counselor to fully understand the federal work incentives that could protect their benefits when they work. If someone is concerned about safely working in the community, explore strategies for safety planning, such as helping a person learn how to use a cell phone to call for help. Explore staffing and job coaching, or ensure the lines of communication are open between the person and their employer to discuss any issues. Regularly revisit decisions not to work in the community. There are federal requirements about this that apply to certain settings, but revisiting decisions should be considered an important part of all informed choice processes. After all, people can change their minds once they get direct exposure to different employment opportunities and job sites, or talk to more peers who are working. Informed choice is not a one and done process. Studies have shown that people with significant disabilities who are given repeated opportunities to make and act upon a choice through observing or trying jobs in the community can clearly express their vocational preferences if given time. In the case of Brian, he has been consistent in his desires to work competitively in the security field. However, as his knowledge and experience grow, it's important to revisit his decision. What he learns will impact what he wants to do moving forward. He has already started to expand his possible employment options to other community-based jobs, including working in a local school as a hall monitor. This opportunity comes from his newfound understanding of what is out there for him. In addition, as he learns and experiences more, he raises new concerns and fears that his team of supporters can help him address and overcome. As with everyone, Brian's employment search is a journey that will continue throughout his life. In this next video, you will hear from Anita, Nick's mother, who will share how his team of supporters work together to help Nick find success in employment.
Everyone there, the employees as well as the residents and the patients, have embraced Nick. And I think that's part of the community too. You know what? We're all working together to make someone successful.
Back to Brian's story. Through strong and persistent advocacy on his part, and with the assistance of disability advocates, Brian was connected with someone who's working with him to help him achieve competitive integrated employment. As you learned, Brian has a strong desire to work as a security guard. Through the employment services, Brian is lining up various opportunities to see what being a security guard is all about. Using interviews, working interviews, visits to community settings, and observations of people working in the field, Brian is learning what is involved in working in the field of security. In the process, he is learning what parts of the job he's interested in and able to do, and showing others what he's capable of. With the support of others, Brian is making decisions about his future employment. Next, we will hear from Nick again, who first discussed how he uses his mom as a support to think through job options, and then describes how it feels to use supported decision-making in his employment experience.
We compromise, like we communicate well. So I asked her what would be a good job for me that I really like, and then we come together and come to realize maybe this particular job would be perfect. It feels really good though. And there's some stuff it's hard, like it's a process, but when I come together with people like the family that I trust though, like by communicating and learning and stuff more, it really helps a lot. So like whether I'm in the school, like I'm learning a lot of like skills, and my family they trust a lot of my judgment. Like I'm like a very I'm a very hard worker, and I love being around people, and and they just love the amount of work I always do, and I love like being part of this work community.
To reiterate some key points, we encourage people to recognize that the informed choice process should be individualized to the person with a disability. It is not sufficient to provide people with only written information or large group presentations about employment options. Instead, promote face-to-face interactions and visual and experiential opportunities to explore those options. You may remember that Mary, Antonio's mother, recommended this approach. Instead of forming her own opinion about what Antonio can do, she gives him opportunities to show her and to develop his preferences and choices from those opportunities. Advocate for individualized accommodations for people's communication, cognitive, mental, behavioral health, and cultural needs. People may need different kinds of supports to effectively and meaningfully participate in decisions about their life. Consider their past experiences with decision-making and the impact of any past segregation. If people are not given choices in their lives, they will need help fully understanding and appreciating community options, in experiencing them firsthand, and in making an informed choice. The person with a disability should be the focus of employment planning, with their vision and goals being the guide. What if a person with a disability has a guardian or conservator? How should the informed choice process work in that situation? As we highlighted in our first training video, the National Guardianship Association has said that if guardianship is necessary, supported decision-making should be incorporated as a part of it. Guardians and conservators should involve people with disabilities in their own decision-making, and they should include them in the informed choice process. In all cases, people with disabilities should be actively involved in the informed choice process, regardless of their guardianship or conservatorship status. This approach is also supported by Connecticut statute and case law around guardianship. As one federal court found, quote, guardianship does not completely divest an individual of the right to participate in decisions, end quote. Connecticut law requires a guardian to consult with the individual, and professional standards require the individual's opinion to be taken into account in making decisions, including about community placement. Similarly, the Connecticut Standards of Practice for Conservators requires conservators to encourage the person to participate in the decision-making process and follow the person's preferences, unless doing so would cause substantial harm. You may also remember Pam and Emma's story from our first video. While Pam is Emma's conservator, she works with Emma to increase her decision-making ability, respects her choices, and involves her in the decision-making process to the greatest extent possible. In fact, Pam was told explicitly by the probate court that this was exactly what she needed and was expected to do as Emma's conservator. You can watch Emma and Pam's video on our DRCT supported decision-making webpage. Guardians and conservators should include people with disabilities in the informed choice process and related meetings, support them to understand what their options are, and consider and respect what their preferences and goals are around working. In the next video clip, you will hear from Annie, Dylan's mother and guardian, who shares how she includes Dylan in making decisions about work.
When it comes to making decisions about employment, we'll sit and talk about it. I'll get his feelings if it's something he's interested in. If he's not, try to find out why he's not interested, because he may have a different perspective of what the job would entail. And we'll discuss all the positives, the negatives, and how it would be beneficial to him. And I always get his input.
We talked today about the importance of informed choice, key components of a good informed choice process, and ways to overcome barriers to informed choice. It is so important that people with disabilities and families have all of the information, supports, and accommodations they need to work together in making informed choices about employment. Supported decision-making has a role in the informed choice process, even if someone has a guardian or a conservator. A person with a disability should be provided with the accommodations they need to participate in the process to the fullest extent possible. Supported decision-making can help reduce or eliminate many barriers to employment that people face. You have heard today from people with disabilities and their families about how they have made the decision to transition to competitive integrated employment opportunities. Some had guardians or conservators, while others did not. Making the decision to choose competitive integrated employment was not easy for all of them, but it was critical that they had all of the information they needed to make an informed choice about their options. That is what informed choice is all about. Thank you for joining us today. You can find helpful resources and links to learn more about supported decision-making on our website at disrightsct.org/SDM or DISRIGHTSCT.org/SDM, or on the Connecticut Supported Decision-Making Coalition's webpage at ctsilc.org/supported-decision-making. This presentation was developed in collaboration with the Center for Public Representation. Please visit their websites at supporteddecisions.org and centerforpublicrep.org. Again, thank you for joining us today. Social Security funded the creation of this presentation under a grant. Although Social Security reviewed this presentation for accuracy, it does not constitute an official Social Security communication. This communication is printed, published, or produced and disseminated at U.S. taxpayer expense.